Yeah.
All good.
Well, I guess, welcome, Clip. Thanks for taking time out of here. Well, it was a busy schedule last week because we tried to do this last week, but we had technical difficulties, so we're doing take two. Last week you're on the Goldie, you were getting ready to do a bit of a training camp. Just come from that big South Shore, so we're going to go back a couple of weeks because I wanted to talk about that. We had that big East Coast low, big South Swell. It came through Sydney. I know you got a bunch of waves. The internet got broken by dead man's. So let's just take us through that run of swell before we get into anything else, because it seemed like it was one of the best swells that hit Sydney in freaking years, and some of the big wave spots down there lit up, and we saw a whole bunch of underground charges just bloody going for it.
Yeah, that was an insane run of swell. Since I've lived in Sydney, maybe close to 3 years, I don't think I've seen a swell that big and that east. Obviously, Sydney's on the east coast of Australia, and we normally get these big winter swells that kind of roll up the coast, but they sort of miss us all the time and kind of feather out to sea, and you get the dribbles of it, and it's not normally big and powerful. But this swell was just like, for a week straight, it was just pounding southeast, and then it was just turning more east, which just built the intensity. And then all these places, known big wave spots, but they're not great waves. I guess this direction just made them just go off the Richter. And there was just these underground charges pulling out these old dusty boards, and there's just so many good underground charges from Australia that I've probably taken the week off work, or left family commitments to go and chase these waves. But mate, it was a great run as well. A lot of boards broken, maybe a couple bruised ribs, and for me personally, I thought it was just unreal to not have to travel to the other side of the world to get some intensity.
Yeah, I remember texting back and forth, and like it's so funny. It's like one of those typical swell chasing. Like you get all hyped up and you got a plan, and then the plan goes pear shaped. You're like you went out to Bondi to surf that big left. You snapped a brand new Dylan Shapes Grommets board, and then that was one wave, and then you were meant to, I think, go out with Parto with the ski, and then that didn't work, and then you text me at the end of that day and go, freaking, I hate surfing, that's why I do triathlons. But then luckily, and then you saw the photos of like the big day that you had to work, the big day of at Dead Man's, and I know you would have been just losing your shit. I know you. But then the next day, you actually go back to Dead Man's, thinking every man and his dog is going to be out there, but actually the world's aligned for you, and you actually got a ton of waves, like literally no one was out there, and you scored like a whole session. So like sort of like a typical swell event, right? You hang in there and keep trying to get it, and you actually end up scoring big time.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be like a big wave, a swell without drama, right? It's just, when has anything ever gone to plan straight off the bat? But again, that's why we chase it. It's so hard for the stars to align. When people ask about big waves and they're like, "Oh, would you go that wave?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course," but it's like getting there. It's like you got to get to the other side of the planet. You need to have your equipment in check. Your equipment has to arrive. You have to have a tow partner, safety, all these things that make it hard to come together. But for me, yeah, as you said, I was so angry. I was so frustrated. I was like, we finally got the 50-year storm has arrived on my doorstep, and it's like, I can't open the parcel. It's just sitting on the doorstep the whole time. And, I work full time as a lifeguard down at Bondi, which is a great job and good for training and surfing. But yeah, I knew I was going to miss the biggest day. I just couldn't get off work. And through the whole COVID thing, lifeguard service has been great to us. And, I want to be loyal and not take too many days off, but ended up getting a day off for the Friday swell. And as you said, I was just so frustrated. I'd already broken a few boards by trying to surf these kind of rubbish, junky type, near impossible kind of waves to surf. But, I thought that was my only way to get my kicks, by going over the falls a couple of times on some misto reefs. I was absolutely losing it, because Dead Man's is a wave in the middle of the city. There was all the hype from the Wednesday. Obviously, that photo went viral around the world, and I was like, what am I even doing? It's dropped off a little bit. It's not going to be that good. It's just going to be a zoo. But got there, and it wasn't all that big. It was like 8 feet, maybe a couple 10-footers, 2 or 3 guys out. And I was like, said to my buddy Lance, who was shooting from the water, let's just paddle out and, get wet for the sake of it. We'll wash the drive off. And then as soon as we got out there, pretty much those guys went in. I was the only one out there, and it just started, every set literally just started like 2 foot on top of the last set. It was just getting bigger, cleaner, tide started dropping. And for like 4 hours, maybe a couple guys came and went, and they were like, dude, I don't, it's bigger than what I thought out here. You take everything. And I was actually really undergunned. I wasn't even nearly gunned.
Yeah, I saw it. You look like you're on like a 6'4" or something, right?
No, I was on a 5'9".
Oh my god, jeez.
Yeah, so when I say I was undergunned, I wasn't even gunned. It's like I took a knife to a gunfight. But
you're on a tow board without a ski.
Essentially, yeah, that's what it felt like. But this wave in particular, you can kind of chip into it and roll in. But I guess it was good in a way, because every time I caught a wave, I'd lose all my speed. There was no drive from being on such a small board, and it would just suck you back into the barrel. So your only option was to like charge and pull into these things and try and go off the step, and like you had to be really aggressive. But ended up having one of those sessions that I'll definitely remember for the rest of my life. And it was just me and my buddy out there for upwards of 4 hours, just trading off screams and things like that. In terms of like content and getting photos of it, it was quite hard because he was swimming in the water, and it's a pretty intense wave, a lot of water moving. We linked up a couple times, but there was a few where I just had this like trophy stance, and I was like in this survival, just shockwave of the barrel type thing. But it's always going to be etched in my memory. And a few people sent me some iPhone clips here and there. So yeah, but that was just one of those sessions that rarely happens in this day and age with surf forecasting and hype and crowds.
Was that what did Queenie Bommy do it on that swell?
It did. I think that, I could be wrong, I think that likes a bit more of a south swell.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think because it picked up so much throughout the afternoon that wasn't really expected. Like it was expected to come up a little bit, but I think as the swell picked up, the direction changed as well. And as I was saying earlier about Sydney, when it gets that east, it just gets so much power.
Magnifies it so much. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, even, coming down the coast, like if it's straight south, it nearly goes out to sea. If it's got a touch of east to it, it finds its way into the coastline, and it just adds so much value to it. And then you actually got a really sick day out at Cape Solander too, right? Ours, got whipped into a couple from Dylan and paddled into a few, and that looked like a pretty sick. It looked like it was too big and woolly for the big days there. Was it too like out of control to surf, and then when the swell came down, it sort of settled down and was able to surf it again?
Yeah, exactly. It was like most of the swells we get are these big storm swells, and then they're all messy. And the first few days were actually messy. And then Saturday was always going to be the day for Cape Solander, and the stars aligned for me on that one because I had the Saturday, Sunday off work. But again, what I'm like. I don't have a jet ski. I got like a 15-year-old tow board brought down from the Gold Coast that had like the first ever FCS fin system. They were all like rusted and like corroded, so I couldn't do that. But ended up linking up with Dylan. He had tow boards and a ski there, and he's actually carrying a knee injury, so he's such a legend. He towed me into some bombs early, and then tried to paddle for the main part of the day. And I know like this paddle movement is such a good thing, but I really think Cape Solander is a tow wave. When it gets above 6 feet, you can't paddle the sets. And like we all try and be heroes and do it, and there's a few bodyboarders that take waves out there, but even the bodyboarders can't paddle the sets from the peak. So when it gets that big, it turns into like just jet ski central. And you know what it's like when the jet skis are in rotation. It's pretty intense and pretty stressful to be out there paddling, but it was just such a sick day. Like, again, all the underground charges came out of the woodwork, and guys were just getting so barreled and so flogged too, like everyone was just getting pounded. But yeah, some really cool photos and footage came out of that. Timber Nathan was there filming, so I'm sure, that stuff's going to pop up in the near future.
Yeah, it seems like there's a few ways, like even like Chopu, when it gets to that size, like it's sort of common knowledge that the guys are going to tow the sets, and the guys are paddling are going to try and, get the, 8 to 10 footers. And then same with shippies, right? Gets to a certain size, and that's, it's your Dyson, with whatever's going on. And same with Cape Solander. And it seems like those spots have a good, whoever's running those spots or whoever the locals there seem like they have a good way of understanding that, hey guys, like there are going to be skis and sets and we're going to take them, and then you guys can have the smaller ones. And it might be hectic, but it seems to work, and not everyone's like pissed off. It seems like there's a sense of like the way that it's done is good.
For sure. And I don't think it's the jet skis that are the problems. As you know, it's more the operator. Like if someone's on a jet ski being a kook, it's not the jet skis problem or like the tow surfing thing. It's the operator being selfish, not knowing how to drive, not knowing how to be safe, and being disrespectful. But yeah, I think definitely places like Shipsterns, like Marty and all the boys have that place just on lockdown, and they call the shots when it's a paddle and a tow day. Like there's always going to be that that one set that's paddleable. That there's going to be a guy letting go of the rope on. There might be a little bit of beef here and there, but to be honest, I think when all those places are bombing, there's going to be empty waves unridden, and surfing's about getting barreled right. So I'm in full support of jet skis when it gets big like that, and I love paddling too. But
sure.
let's call it how it is, right?
Yeah, totally, for sure. Well, that's good, man. I'm stoked you got some waves and it finally aligned for you. But so let's take a step back in time now. And because, if we go back to growing up on the Gold Coast, like you were, one of those kids growing up that was sort of like a prodigy, right? Sponsored by Rip Curl real early. I think last time we were chatting, I was talking about how Palm Beach, Currumbin, I think Eleanor, like the schools in Australia would have surfing as a sport and actually as a subject, So you were saying you would go surfing before school to get the hours up, and then school would start, and then the teacher would come down, you'd still be surfing, and then you could go to school, do a few classes, and then there'd be surfing for lunch or whatever, like, so it's sort of like, as you can tell on the Gold Coast, there are that many good surfers, what I mean? Like, of course you've got Mick and Joel and Dean and like a million other people, but then you've got like guys that just are tradies in that just could be on the QS, like it's just non-stop, and I feel like it's just nearly bred into the Gold Coast,
Definitely, mate. I was so fortunate growing up to not only, go to school on the Gold Coast, but to be surrounded by such good talents like not only Mick, Dean, Joel, but as you said, some of the underground guys too. Like those guys are world-class surfers. Those guys could probably qualify for the tour if given the chance and opportunity. So it's like being on the Gold Coast is just you're a pro surfer, right? It's like that's just what's bred into you. It's a bit like the North Shore, right? You're just a water person, water man, woman. But had a really good sort of junior career growing up, and I just wanted to make the world tour. And then I always had this little thing for big waves. It's like I think when I was young, I was kind of like that show off kid. I always hung out with the older guys, and I guess being like a little punk blonde haired kid, I guess that was my way of trying to earn respect with the older guys. So I guess if I was out pulling the closeouts or doing that sort of thing, they might let me hang out with them a little bit more, or they don't have to look after me, so I can hold my own when it gets big and not be a burden on any of their surf trips. So that was pretty much when I started to get my bug for big waves. And I was lucky enough to go to Hawaii when I was 14 years old and do a season over there. When I say season, like a couple of months at least, staying with Jamie O'Brien back in his house at Ayakai Beach Park. And Mick and Jamie O'Brien took me under their wing and just showed me around the North Shore, and got to meet all the boys. McCool was a grom then, and Ryan Rawson and guys like that, Danny Fuller, all the guys now who are dominating pipes. So I just, you're living in Hawaii, I just fell in love with the place, and big waves it felt right.
Yeah. So it seems like you were very, super successful as a junior. You won multiple state national titles. You won the which at the time was huge, because I remember being on the Gold Coast. I remember Luke Munro winning the World Grommet titles in Bali. You won a World Grommet title in Bali. And so like you were on your way, man. Like it was like that path was it was a telltale. Clint Kimmins was on the way to potentially being on the world tour if that was the path, and obviously you went to but like you went, and then you went, like you said, you went to Hawaii, you I think, if I remember correctly, doing a bit of research, you probably landed like nearly close to 7 or 8 covers, and most of those covers were, mate, in Hawaii too. Like I remember that one with the red board shorts. I don't know if it was pipe or off the wall, but like you really took a liking to Hawaii, and you were sort of known as that hard charging kid from Australia that went hard in Hawaii, and so I'm guessing that was that time where it's like, you want to qualify, you want to be like the heroes like Mick, Joel and that, but you're also like, hey man, there's something about like pushing yourself over the ledge and pulling in the big closeouts that started to like get into your psyche, and you're sort of starting to like that.
Yeah, and I guess it's why I like triathlon too. I guess big waves is like stepping into a room full of mirrors. When you've got a 15, 20 footer about to land on your face, it doesn't matter if you own 50 properties, you're a millionaire. It's just this really honest, cool place. And I guess looking back now, I guess I was drawn to that honesty from a young age. And as you said, I did have some success, not only with results, but in terms of getting good coverage, and the sponsors love that. Everyone's like, oh, how's the cover? And it tickles the ego, to be honest, and it felt really good at the time, and it was just so easy to keep going down that path. Guys would go, oh, Clint was charging today, and you'd try and take it in your stride, but in all honesty, like you'd just be so stoked that some of your peers, and especially those winter months in Hawaii when the circus is in town, like if you get one of the waves of the day, you walk into Foodland or you walk into a restaurant, guys nearly start applauding,
Yeah.
So for me, it was like that was the contest outside of the contest, and something I just really enjoyed doing. And my heroes growing up, not only were they the world tour guys, but they were guys like Richard Schmidt, Ross Clark Jones, Brock Little, like all the big wave surfers. Just something about those guys, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, and we're still stroking egos now, still looking for the waves of the day, and the big wave set is still the same. You're sitting at the press after a session at Mavericks, and you're hoping that you see that you got that shot, and then everyone starts looking, and it's like, you got this shot, mate. It's like
and it is ego driven. Like I know there's so many guys out there and try and play it off like for the love, man. I'm like, there's a few nuts that would be out there if it's 50 foot, no cameras around, and like we all do it because we love it. But at the end of the day, like I've seen some of the most humble dudes like, hey, who were you shooting? Like, did you get that shot? Like, can you airdrop me, or like, let's have a look, like, I post it? But that's the business side of big wave surfing too. It's like, if a tree falls in the woods, no one hears it. So what,
Yeah.
So imagine getting like a 50-foot pit at Mavericks or something, and no one got it. You can't tell me there's not a soul in the world that wouldn't be bummed. There's not evidence.
Yeah, totally. So so you mentioned that you're on a projection to such a cool path, and then as we spoke about before, it's well documented, obviously. But you went to a mate's 18th birthday, I think, was it? It was 18th, right?
It was 21st.
21st birthday at Tugun Surf Club, which is a surf club on the Gold Coast, and that's where life sort of took a real U-turn for Clint Kimmins, and I bring it up because from hanging out with you a lot, since that's happened, I really feel like that was obviously it's a pivotal point in your life, but in a way you've used it as a massive positive, and like for you to be sitting there like doing a training camp triathlon, I think if you don't go to jail, I don't know if you're sitting where you are right now. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't see Clint Kimmins as a 18-year-old pro surfer going, I'm going to be a Ironman triathlete. You know what I mean? Like, so I think so I think it's a really, like, it's a, as much as, you can get into the details of how hard it was and the struggle and just the pure bullshit that was around it. But like right now where you're sitting, like it's put you in the spot you are now, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And like, I don't know about the saying everything happens for a reason, because there's a lot of really twisted stuff out there that happens that is very unfortunate to people. But in my case, like I just had to wear it on the chin. And to try and cut a long story short, I went to a friend's 21st birthday party. A bunch of guys crashed the party. Started a fight on the dance floor, and I walked out of the party, got jumped by these guys, and was getting my head kicked in, and looked over, there was a broken bottle on the ground, picked it up, started waving it, got the guy in the neck a couple times, and we rolled around on the ground, and he had a mark on his back. So went to trial, all that sort of thing, full jury. I pleaded not guilty to unlawful wounding. I think there might have even been another charge on top of it, which is even heavier. So I pleaded not guilty to that, even though I admitted to being in the fight, doing everything that happened. And ended up getting sentenced to 2 years in jail. And then that was suspended after 6 months on a good behaviour bond, but being in a maximum security prison. 1 week you're traveling the world on the WQS, sponsored by Rip Curl and Oakley and all these amazing sponsors, literally living your dream. And then, here you are waking up in jail. But, it sent me on a path of, I'm not going to say redemption, because I've never been that bad kid. And I honestly believe that. I think I'm a good person. And even though that happened to me, I really believe that could happen to a lot of people. And it was unfortunate, and I don't wish it upon anyone. But at the same time, it's fight or flight, like what do you do in those situations? And in a way, I'm proud of the way I dealt with it. It just sucks that the whole court case was just such a debacle. And I won't go into it because I don't want to sound like I'm trying to, play the fiddle and poor me. But, I had the positives, I guess, that came out of it was the whole entire surfing fraternity. Obviously all the guys on the Gold Coast, guys like Ockie, Mick, Dean, Joel, my girlfriend at the time, threw this huge fundraiser for me, because not only did my savings go, but I had to borrow money. And, I think the case alone cost like 200 grand or something. And then we appealed it, obviously, and that cost a lot more money. But I just well, what do you do? Do you sit in there, bawl your little eyes out and, poor me, or do you get on with it? And for me, it's not even a choice to be made. I read a lot of books that pretty much kickstarted my fitness regime. Like, what else do you do in there, right? Apart from your jobs and whatnot inside the jail, I just trained the house down, studied a bit of nutrition, and just, tried to discover who I really was when all the fluff is stripped away from you. And I'm not going to say there's no better place to do it, because it's not a good place by any means, but again, it's like big wave surfing or even triathlon. It's like, okay, who are you? What are you made of? No one's coming to save you. This is it. And to be honest, it's one of my greatest ever achievements is how I got through that time inside. And, I credit myself for that, and also my friends and family I had around me at the time. People stuck by me. Some people left, they read the newspapers and saw a headline and thought I was a bad person, because the typical journalist goes and writes all these stupid clickbait stories. But it really, the positives far outweigh the negatives. And here I am today, fit, healthy, happy, and just extremely motivated. So, mate, I'm in a great place, and maybe it was a crossroads in my life. Maybe I'd be a burnt out guy, whether I qualified on the tour or not. But right now I'm just still driven, and I've found the sport of triathlon, which I'm just incredibly in love with. And it's extremely challenging, like the big waves, that, there's no perfect round like golf, right? You can't go around an 18-hole golf course in 18 shots. You can always get faster. You can always get better. Same as big waves. You can always go deeper. You can always go bigger. So, mate, it's good times right now.
Yeah. No, it's awesome, because it's, you probably, you got a lot of time to yourself, obviously, in jail, right? And then it's like, so you do find yourself and you really like it, and then your mental fortitude and toughness, which I'm sure you've transferred from time in there to the triathlons, because you're not just doing, you do triathlons, but let's be honest, you're doing the more endurance style triathlons, half Ironmans, and, you do a bunch of other crazy endurance races and stuff. But, I feel like, to be like, in my opinion, you would be the burnt out surfer that's laying bricks. That was Clint Kimmins. Hey, that guy fucking used to be the man. Still rips at snapper at the pub. At the pub Friday arvos with the boys. Like, that you've just seen it too much, and we've all got those friends that, whether it's whatever it is, and it's really, that's a culture in Australia. And you sort of just sit back and you go, fuck, that probably was the path. So, but either way, so you get out of jail, you do, and that's just like you're actually doing hard time. That's the crazy thing. Like, you do it, you do a crime, and sometimes you go to these nice jails. You went to fucking full maximum security in Australia. Like, it wasn't an easy thing, which is I mean, props off to you, mate. But let's move on from that. Move on from that shit. And
yeah, leave that one behind. But I still think of it, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. You know, I sometimes look in the mirror and I'm like, that little skinny like kid went to there. I'm like, really? But moving on.
Yeah, you're probably glad you didn't have the haircut you got now when you went to jail. That's for sure.
Yeah, I would have had some friends. Put it that way.
So what's the mindset? You get out doing your time. You do your 6 months. You stay out of trouble. I know you had a couple of run-ins here and there, but you basically stay out of trouble. You get out. Number one, what's the focus? Number one, obviously you're stoked. You probably number one thing you want to do is go and see family, friends, your girlfriend at the time. Yeah. You want to jump in the water, go surf, but you know you probably have a lot of time to regroup a plan. You know, you owe money. Obviously, you're not going straight back out. Rip Curl's not going, hey Clint, here's $100,000 a year. Let's continue on the same path. You know, It's like what's the mindset getting out? You know, initially moving forward, is it I want to get back to being a pro surfer, or you're like, hey, I'm going to start doing triathlons. I'm going to get a normal job. Life is going to be normal. Like, what's the mindset when you get out of prison and start to move forward with your life?
The mindset was making up for lost time. I think, even though people might think 6 months is a pretty short amount of time, but when you're at the peak of your career and everything's going great and the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, or you pull it out from under yourself, I should say. I just wanted to hit the ground running. Like, I trained so hard in there. I wanted to get back into surfing. Triathlon wasn't even in the picture. I was fit. I was doing a lot of running in there. Got out. I just wanted to get straight back on the WQS and start competing. And I got out, and I was fortunate. You know, Oakley picked me up for an apparel deal along with eyewear. I went to this camp where they were selecting surfers to join what they had called the WQS program with Red Bull. That's when Julian Wilson got on board. Myself, Michelle Perez got picked up by Red Bull, Matt Wilkinson, Gavin Gillette, and Tim Bowl, like a bunch of really cool guys, got on the Red Bull program of excellence to go and do the QS. And I got one of those spots and got on the QS, and like, I was fit. I was surfing really well. I had really good boards. Darren Hanley was helping me at the time, and also Mick Fanning, you know, he was just buffing me with his older boards and things like that. And mate, I barely got through a heat, you know, in my couple of years. Like, you know, I got through heats and, you know, a couple maybe like round before the quarters or even the quarters, but on the QS, that's just not going to cut it. And I was so confused because I was like, for the one time in my career, I've done everything right. I've applied myself. I'm fit. I'm healthy. My equipment's good. I've got Red Bull backing me, you know, and I think looking back now, I put too much pressure on myself.
Yeah, I was about to say you probably took it as a second chance, and you're like, how lucky am I? This has to work. I've got to make it work. And sometimes when you go in with that mentality, everything goes the complete opposite.
Yeah, well, with surfing anyway, like if it was a 100-meter sprint, that's probably the right mentality to have because it's an explosion power sport. But you know, when you're overamped for a heat, Andrew King was coaching me at the time, and he's like, mate, just settle down. Like you can't make the waves come to you. You know, you have to just chill out. And then, you know, I'd catch a wave and just frantically freak out and then lose the heat and go for a free surf down the beach and have one of my best ever surfs. And it broke me. I was like, mate, like what's going on? So I started training, you know, because I didn't want to go home and sit around and be bitter at the WQS and that's just crap waves. And, you know, the QS sucks. Like you hear so many guys do, but let's face it, you know, the good guys qualify. You know, it's like there's a lot of luck involved with surfing, but I'm a big advocate of you do make your own luck, and you know the champions always come through, and that wasn't me on the QS. So I just went and started training, and then all of a sudden, an hour run out in the hills of behind the Gold Coast was better than an hour surf at Snapper, where I'm hassling for people. I'm probably going to do the same turns or get the same barrel I've done 1,000 times, and yeah, the whole surfing thing just felt negative to me, and the training felt so positive. And not with my addictive personality, but I just found the challenge of triathlon and going faster, and I guess falling in love with the first over the line sport that the more you put in, the more you get out, right? The fittest guy beats the other guy more times than not. Like you can agree with that with your paddling. You know, if you do the time in the ocean, paddle your ring out, you're going to beat the other guy because that's how you build the body. And
Yeah.
I just got so addicted to triathlon, and then started small. And actually, my first triathlon, it's a pretty funny story. I'm like, okay, I'm done with the QS. I'm over it. Like I still was sponsored at the time and kind of juggling the both. But I signed up to do this local triathlon, and I'm like, all right, there's no luck involved in this thing. Like I've trained the house down. I'm fit. I'm ready to go. Jumped in like completely petrified, borrowed a buddy's bike, got out of the swim in one of the top positions, went to jump on the bike, and I had a puncture. So I'm like, here's this sport that's just this most honest, beautiful thing. And like the bike was just clapped out. I didn't even get to finish my first race. And so typical me, like I was like, all right, let's go. Let's get a bike, So I bought a bike and started racing and just fell in love with it.
So when you're doing the Red Bull high performance thing at Surfing Australia, how old are you? What's your age then?
Mate, I think it was about 23.
Yeah.
Like I'm so bad at like thinking back from the day.
Yeah.
Like, I know so many guys in the pub are like, the winter of 1974, and I'm like, what? I can't remember what happened last year. But mate, I think I was about 23.
Yeah, and then that hook of the triathlon, because it's like triathlon, like most people can run, right? I mean, you got two legs, you can run. Most people know how to ride a bike. The swimming thing is the one that gets a lot of people, and obviously being a surfer and growing up and stuff, I know you could swim, but as you know, being able to
not well.
be a surfer swimmer compared to being a swimmer that wants to compete in the triathlon is a whole nother different level, So I'm guessing that was the hardest part for you to work at, and you worked pretty hard at getting your swimming up to that level.
For sure. Like I think you carry the strength, and there's certain muscle groups that you can recruit from a lifetime of paddling. But to be honest, I was too scared to go to the pool. And if I did go to the pool, I'd see squads and I'd like nearly wait till they were done before I jumped in the water and started swimming. I was that bad at it. I could do it for as long as I needed to, but in terms of technique, style, and speed, I was completely hopeless. And I think it took me a good few years before I jumped into a swim squad with other people. And then the coach started going, dude, you've got all the strength and fitness in the world, but your technique is just horrible. So they helped me out and taught me a few little things, and, found some massive improvements. But man, swimming's the hard one. Like you grew up as a swimmer, right? I think it's very hard for an adult to learn the technique of swimming at an older age when you're all stiff and your body's already developed. It's like you need to train a youthful body to be able to like reach out, get the catch, have a high elbow and things like that. And I wasn't competing just to finish these races. Like I was, I wanted to do well in them. So for me, it wasn't a matter of just covering the distance. It was about racing the distance.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I remember too, like I think I was still living on the coast, and we were working, doing the water patrol at the Quickie Pros. And I remember at the time that you had hadn't vanished from surfing, but you definitely like you said, it was like, I'd rather go and ride for 2 hours. And I get it. I know exactly what you mean, mate. Like there's something about going out and giving it to yourself, and not even giving it to yourself, but just going out and working out and coming back and going, man, that was awesome. I was in nature. I worked out. I feel great. I mean, you can go out for a surf and just come in like wanting to kill someone. You know what I mean? Like there's something to that, that's very peaceful as well. And then if you set yourself like you do, like if you set yourself goals as well, it's even easier to start to, and I can see with you, it's like, that feels good. Am I going to go surf or train? Then it's like, I'll go train. And then the more that you do that, the easier it is that surfing just starts to go to the wayside, and I clearly remember that. I remember like the one time too, you guys did it. You end up running to Byron Bay from Snapper that one year, starting off, I think Madden done it and all that stuff. And I was like, wow, Clipper's fully into this, and so in that period of like sort of drifting away from surfing and then like sort of really shifting your focus into triathlon, like how long did it take until you got to like a level where you're like, you know what, I want to like be good, like not just good, but I still want to start racing and then potentially like want to go pro, because you end up turning pro, and I know you won a full distance race in Singapore or Thailand, was it? Or
There's been a few. Like as an age
Yeah.
grouper,
Yeah.
I've won a bunch. Like as an amateur, I've won a bunch. That's what made me want to get my pro license. You know, I was
Mm.
getting so many good results as an amateur, and then you can either be a big fish in a small pond and stand on the podium and raise your medal, and like I'm the hero of the amateurs, and like everyone thinks you won the entire race, but
Yeah.
the professionals and the amateurs race on the same day. And then I was trying to look at my times, and then I guess, I was like, I think I could race these guys. So even if I get my butt kicked and finish 7th or 8th, I'm not going to get my fancy podium photo, but I'm progressing forward and still getting better. And I'd rather be that small fish in a big pond and get my teeth kicked in by these other guys, but still challenge myself and get faster in the process doing it. But I haven't won a pro race yet, but
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. I mean, you done Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I've done the Hawaiian Ironman a couple of
Yeah.
times. Yeah, it's
Yeah. I
as
mean,
hard as they say it is. It's torture.
yeah. Well, just even qualifying for the Hawaiian Ironman is nuts, right?
Yeah, yeah. The minimum buy-in for the sport of triathlon is all in. It's such a gnarly sport. Like, obviously look up to guys like yourself with your long distance paddling, and you winning Molokai that many times is just insane, and people who run marathons. But I purely believe that Ironman triathlon is the hardest sport on planet Earth. It's MMA fighters jump in a ring and kind of get popped and like, whoa, like what happened? Or like they might get choked out and it's over in a couple of seconds. But in an Ironman, it's, 8, 9, up to 17 hours of putting your head in a vice, and just, you've got to keep winding it, like the more it hurts, the faster you go. And you can let go at any time, but it's up to you to not only train your body to get into a position to inflict that much pain on yourself, but yeah, you've just got to be so mentally tough. And they say the body quits before the mind, and the mind quits before the body. But yeah, I believe that for sure. It's a real mental game.
Yeah, and that's all. That's a perfect little transition into how, like how that has transferred into, now you're, like skipping forward. You found you're back in the you're back in the big wave surfing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're living in LA. You're training over there. We started to hook up a ton, and you started buying boards, going to Mavs, and
Borrowing boards, you mean?
borrowing boards
Off you.
But like, I love the transition of what you do. Like, it's such a mental game, and you're obviously so fit. But how do you take what you do? Like big wave surfing, like must be easy compared to what you do on Ironman. Like, I mean, look, there's certain situations that are scary, but taking like what you've learnt from, and all the mental aptitude and the torture you put yourself through in the training, you must give yourself amazing confidence. I think it's good for, if there's any young kids listening to this thing, surfing is gone, and I truly believe it was when Mick Fanning snapped, and I was training at the same place with Jan Carlton on the Gold Coast when I was doing my Molokais, when Mick snapped his hamstring in Indo, and he came back and within 2 years won the world title, and everyone was like, "What? How? Like, how did he win the world?" Like, and it was very well publicized that he started training. And I know Tom Carroll was way ahead of his time, right? He was running the Sandhills with freaking Sandhill Warrior and all that stuff. But I feel like Mick was the guy that made it cool, right? And then everyone started to slowly start to, train. And training for surfing, let's be honest, is not like training for an Ironman triathlon. But people started to figure out, hey, we need to work out. We need to be in better shape. We need to be, so I think it's good for the young kids, especially in big wave surfing, because the potential, but there's a big potential that you're going to really get injured, and you're also going to die straight up.
Yeah.
So I think that it would be good for the young kids that are listening to this podcast, but what can they take out of, if they get into training, and obviously they don't have to do Ironman triathlons, but they can go out and push themselves, not only physically but mentally, that it's going to transfer into big wave surfing.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to what I think you said at the start, I'll take a 5-wave set on the head on a big wave at Mavericks over even just my Tuesday morning pool session. I think you just get so used to being uncomfortable that a scary situation or a situation like that doesn't become all that hard. Like, don't get me wrong, I still get scared out in the water and things like that, and I'm not like a nut like Healy or any of these. I see these guys as the biggest chargers on the planet. But I, like I've tried to getting back into big wave surfing. I'm trying to take the professional triathlete approach to big wave surfing. And I think from watching you pretty much do it, like sitting here now, we've pretty much done a role reversal, right? Growing up, you were the athlete, I was like the surfer dude, and now it's like you're still an athlete, of course, but it's like I'm like the guy chasing, a different sport, and then surfing's kind of there. But mate, I think for the kids out there, just get in the pool. Like, don't be afraid, like, to put some lycra on, or it doesn't even matter. It's like when the waves are big, who are the guys that they're the keyboard warriors, like that turkey from Orange County that tees off on all the butt dart cyclists and things like that. It's like I'd love to look that guy in the eye when it's 25 feet out of Mavs or something like that. Like, who's the butt dart now? Just don't be afraid to have a crack, and don't worry about what other people think. Like, look at some of the best athletes on earth and what they put into it. Like Fanning, Fanning's now in lycra riding around and doing that type of thing. It's like, really? Yeah. So just don't be afraid to embarrass yourself and step out of your comfort zone and try something new. It's the best thing I ever did was dive deep into triathlon, and I think that's starting to complement my surfing, especially when it's big. Yeah, no,
it's 100% true, that role reversal thing, because I'm totally honest with myself too. Like, I grew up surfing, but I was surfing wasn't my thing that I did every day to want to be a pro surfer. I wanted to be an athlete, an Ironman, or I wanted to go to the Olympics or whatever it may be, and that was my drive right through to my 20s, and then Molokai came along and that was my obsession, and then luckily enough, that allowed me to start coming to Hawaii and start surfing, but I always knew like I was by far never going to be the best surfer. It's impossible, because you can't get that time back, that when you're a kid honing those skills and natural ability. Like, I'm never going to be Shane Dorian. It's fucking impossible. Like, you know what I mean? But can I go out and test myself and try and get better and be the best that I can be? 100%. And I'm totally okay with that. I'm totally okay that I'm not like going to be one of the best big wave surfers in the world. And then it's the same with like, maybe with you, like you go like, are you going to go out and beat fucking Jan Frodeno? You know what I mean? A guy that's been like training his whole life, has gone to the Olympics. Like, probably not. But are you going to challenge yourself? Are you going to have days where like you beat people that you shouldn't beat? And that's going to, I mean, I think that's the beauty of it, is like getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that maybe you weren't meant to be that good at, but you're willing to, be a shell, like put yourself out there and be embarrassed sometimes, and not be as good as you want to be, and I think that's the beauty of like of sport in general,
Yeah, and I think like always, like some of the best days I've had within the sport of triathlon have been training days when no one's been around, no one's seen it. Like, I've been out there like having to hit numbers, looking at my computer and my data, going, this is intimidating. And then you come home. When I go to bed that night, you put your head on your pillow and you know within yourself what you've gone out and done. And I really like that. And it's the same with big wave surfing, like, if you've had a good day, if you sent it, like you were safe, you were calculated. And it's the same with triathlon, when you've missed a session or taken a shortcut. So for me, like, I think the two sports just correlate so well together. Like, I probably don't surf half as much as a lot of the big wave guys out there, especially the guys who do it for a living. But, when it's on, like, I feel I'm so confident out in the water, and I have to credit that to what I've done in training from triathlon. Like, let's face it, we're going straight on half these things, right? Like, you get your rail in the water, choose your line, and like, let's go. It's not that hard to surf big waves. Now's a different story, like what Billy and Elby and those guys are doing, yourself, Walsh, all those guys is, it's not easy, and I'm not trying to play it down, but you're not doing like double grab, full rotation, air reverses. It's more up here is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I think it's true. I think a lot of guys, you can paddle out and get a big wave if you got the balls and some experience, but I think now more than ever, you are starting to see that separation of the really good guys. Especially at Jaws. Like, Mavericks is sort of, it's not as long as Jaws, so it's that, but definitely at Jaws that you see Billy, Kai, Albie, I mean, Ian,
it's getting there for sure. Like some of the things, guys doing now, they're not right. They're not, I guess, riding big waves. They're surfing big waves, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
Chumbo's doing turns and like chop hops and stuff on 50
On his backhand. Yeah, Chumbo's a great example, like, and just, Albie with the small boards and just the positioning and stuff. And I think that's really cool. I think there is that separation, and then you got like 10% that are like surfing like that. And then you got 90% that are, surfing like nearly everyone did back then. But, it's, the progression is just going, through the roof, and I'm excited. So, I mean, I want to keep going on that path, because you were living in California, and you were starting to juggle, right? You were falling back in love with big waves. I think it was probably around the time that the WSL started the tour. So you started to see, like, at that time there was a way to get on tour through the performance of the years, and I think it's been a real, to be honest, it's been a bit of a shit show, but there was that opportunity to get yourself on tour if you could get on that list. And so I did start to see you start to, chase more swells, but you were still doing your triathlons full on as well. So how is it juggling, doing one, and how's it like to decide what to do if something clashes? Like, was there a priority over one, or how did you do that?
Yeah, it was a hard one. So I was living in LA and I was training for triathlon full time there. But then again, Mavericks is 6 hours up the road, and I did speak to you. You somewhat took me under your wing, and I thought like a little light bulb went off. I went, hold on a second. What makes a good big wave surfer? You have to be fit. You have to charge. And now the way that they're running these events, you have to have good contest knowledge. And I thought, well, I can do that. Hopefully I charge. I did so many years on the QS and junior series that I've got all the ingredients to make a great big wave surfer. So, and Mavericks is up the road, like, let's go. And, I asked you, I was like, what do I do? And you just said, turn up every swell. If it's 10 foot, if it's 60 foot, turn up and do your thing. So I made a pact to myself that I wouldn't miss any swell at Mavericks for the time that I was there. And I don't think I really did. I missed that one time that I was sick in hospital. And I was like, again, it was like actually the start of when I got into triathlon. I was like, okay, good, honest, fair sport. I've applied myself. Let's go. I'm going to get rewarded for this. And then I went up to that Maverick swell, and it was like 100 foot and onshore, and like the waves were breaking over the wall into the harbour, and I swallowed a bunch of water, and long story short, got really sick. And the doctors kind of gave me this ultimatum between leukemia, HIV, and some form of cancer. And then I'm laying in hospital, missing one of the best days, or my first real trip to Mavericks. And, you guys, Kai, and everyone's flying in doing their thing. Yeah. And I'm laying in a hospital bed, like trying to decide how I tell people I've got one of those three life-threatening diseases. But, yeah, man, I was just hungry. And, like, I trained for triathlon full time. Like, I wouldn't even surf. And then I'll go up to Mavericks, and like sometimes my first wave in months might be, a wave out at Mavs. But and then I guess like I'm a bit of a hippie in that sense, that I really fall in love with certain locations and the people and the locals in that area. You obviously introduced me to Kurt from Powerlines Productions and Luca and his whole family, and those guys, like they treat you like a brother and a true friend. So for me, it was just, it felt right again. Like I really like to follow the path of intuition and what feels good. So, I was full systems go trying to qualify for the big wave tour, and then, found out it's not as easy as that.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, I think that the system has been flawed, and I think we can all attest to that. Like, not by any fault of anyone's really. I just think that, like you said, like I think, you said to me one time, it's like, guys that have the sponsors, obviously get, the more shots and they get promoted. And with the performance of the year, it was a lot of like what people saw throughout the year, not so much what people saw in the ocean, like not so much what I saw, seeing like what you were doing, or, and it's not just you that didn't do it. There's a bunch of other people that never qualified that should have qualified as well, just for the same types of reasons, But hopefully that's on the hopefully that's on the change, and then things are changing. Obviously, we don't have a tour at the moment, but But I think moving forward that there's going to be opportunities for guys like yourself and other guys and Luca and young kids that that may present themselves, that may not necessarily be just pure contest, but other opportunities. So I mean, it's good because I'd love to see I'd love nothing more than to see someone like yourself or even some more Aussies or anyone that so many people around the world that could be on that tour and that would want to. I mean, imagine Laurie Tanner at fucking Jaws. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
how long could we talk about this for? But it comes back to you have the decision, right? Like, I don't think I did the time. Like, I was around for a few seasons and put in some good performances at Mavericks, but you have to do more than that. And to do more than that, you need a travel budget. You need a sponsor. Like, one of the things I used to say was, and it's not whingy. I'm just trying to be honest and call it how it is. If there's 20 photographers in the channel at Mavs, Nathan Florence and I split a peak. Nathan goes left, I go right. If I was a photographer, I'm going to swing the camera at Nathan, right? Like, he's got all the sponsors. His brother's John. The guy's, an incredible athlete. I'm not trying to go down that path, but who's going to run a photo? Who are the magazines going to run? Who are the sponsors going to buy out a photo of? And that's where the real business of big wave surfing comes into it. And I get it. Like, I was the kid that worked in my favor all my junior career, I was so lucky to get so many covers and I had all the sponsors and everything was great for me. But now I'm on the other side of the fence where I don't have the sponsors. I don't have any of that stuff. And I'm not whinging. That's what motivates me. It's like, I want to, and I mean this in the utmost respect to those guys. Like, I want to back then I wanted to get onto that tour and challenge those guys, not because I dislike them, because I respect them so much. And I wanted to show the system and kind of do it for the good guys type thing, like the guy without sponsors, that type of thing, that was a lot of my motivation, not only catching good waves. And then, the tour folded, but it seems like now there's a lot of talk, like what yourself and Zach and a lot of the guys are doing that, I'm excited to see where big waves are going to go in the next few years, especially with all the media outlets and things like that. The world is all of a sudden a pretty small place, in terms of being able to get media out to the masses. So I think we're living in a strange time, right? We're living in this, 2020's been a breeze.
I hate even saying it, but it's going to be this COVID time, I'm like, and I hate that word COVID, man. It just pisses me off. But
should we talk about that or just not touch it?
I don't even want to give it any time. It's it's just
exactly.
But we live in this time where, we may not even be able to, you may not even be able to come to Jaws this year or Mavericks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then, so it's like everyone's in their own little zone. I'm lucky, I've got Jaws or Mavericks or Todos, I could probably get to, and it's coming into our season. Whereas I actually 100% would have flown back for that swell to Australia, because, and I'm like, but even though I'm an Australian citizen, I got 14 days in advance, I'm going to know about a swell. I'm going to go quarantine to go surf, so you're in the mercy of what's going on in the world right now as to what your destiny is as of right now. It's ridiculous.
Mate, it's scary, and I feel there's a lot of athletes out there. What about the guys who just kind of qualified for the big wave tour just before the tour got cancelled and it was the boom. I know there's a lot of athletes, especially in the cycling world, that were maybe due to win the Tour de France and,
the Olympics.
The Olympics. Imagine this was going to be your send-off Olympics. You've had a great career in sport. You've got one last year. You're holding on. You make the Olympic team, and then the Olympics isn't on.
Well, imagine just knowing that you were just in the finest form of your life, and then they go, okay, we're going to have to wait another 12 months. Then imagine going and injuring yourself, and then they do the Olympics and you're not in it. I mean, you may not. That may be your one shot at the Olympics, and you've spent your whole entire life, from a kid to you spent 16 years getting to that point, and it's just been taken away from you, it's not just athletes, it's everything, but it's just like I said, but there are big waves in all these spots, and I guess you just got to be grateful and be on, like you say, be on it when they come to where you're at, because sooner than you know it, Clint's going to be sitting at Bondi with a 10,000 people on the beach and it's going to be blowing 30 knot nor'easters, you know what I mean? Like in the middle of summer, and there ain't going to be too many waves sitting there.
For sure, mate. And that's it. It's like, that's why I think there's that crazy anxiety and everyone's ringing each other all the time. Like when a swell comes, it's just, you know, it's such a good vibe. And I was saying to a couple of the guys at work, and especially this young grommet that I'm kind of taking under my wing a little bit and trying to get him out in the big waves. Just like, how cool is it? And imagine if we could have like a big wave season like they do in Hawaii. Like, I think you guys are just so lucky, and, you know, especially all the Hawaiian guys, to live in such a beautiful place where you get to test yourself so often against the ocean. And, you know, when it's big, you're like, oh, what board do you got? And like, I've got this new fin set up, and you just talk about your equipment, and it sounds very like surfy, bro, but you know, we love that sort of thing. And when we get a swell, like guys are pulling out their 7.4s like they're 10.6s, and like, is this going to work? And like, it's unreal. So, mate, I you know, I miss the big waves, but you know, it's so far in Australia, we've had a great winter, so it's all systems go for these swells.
Yeah, and there's lots of time too. How old are you now, Clip?
36.
36.
Mate, I'm pretty old, but you know, I've got a trendy new haircut, so like, I'm trying to stay young.
Well, you just got to look at guys like, you know, the Jackal, Carlos, and like even Twiggy, mate. Like Twiggy's 46. I'm 43 this year in January.
Are you that old?
Yeah, I'm that old. Can't you tell?
You're all right. It's that all that dieting.
Yeah, it's all that not eating. No, but you know, even like you know, like and that's the thing, right? It goes back to when you tie this all together. It's the healthy lifestyle, the training, looking after yourself, and that's going to keep you in the game to be able to surf these waves and still, you know, when you turn 40, still see the biggest swell of the year, go to, you know, Mavs or whatever, and go, hey, I'm keen to go and get amongst that, you know. So there's plenty of time left in the old tank. Yeah,
mate, age is just a number, and I think if you have a healthy lifestyle and you apply yourself right, like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a day of surfing, and I think with a mentality guys like yourself have, and you know, it's cool seeing guys like Billy train so hard, and it looks like they've really taken a positive direction change to health and fitness. So it's going to be scary what guys are doing in 10 years. You know, with 10 years of experience under their belt doing what they're already doing now. So, mate, big wave surfing is going to be nuts.
Yeah. So say there wasn't COVID, Clip. Let's just go, like, you know, in a perfect world, would you be planning on you know, chasing some swells, like those special ones potentially, like, or trying to get time off and coming over and staying on the couch or the yurt and getting waves? Or what
do you just plug your own business then? Plug.
Is that something that was in your mindset? You know, like, was that a plan to sort of do that?
Absolutely. And, you know, again, it was pretty funny because I've finally got some really good sponsors under my belt now. 2XU, which is a triathlon-based sportswear brand of bring me on board. Garmin's another sponsor. So I've finally got everything in place to be able to take a bit more time off work, some unpaid leave, not only go away and race these triathlons, but not miss a swell. And I think I've finally got the budget together to try and, you know, if the swell's over at Nazare, you're like, I would love to go over there and hit that. You know, I haven't surfed there yet. If Mavs is on, like, I've still got my boards probably gathering dust in Luca's shed. You know, you're there in Hawaii. So if there was no COVID, my dream and everything that I've been working hard for the last good part of a decade would come to fruition. But, you know, the Rona's here, as we say in Australia. But, mate, you just got to take it day by day. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, I'm fit, I'm healthy, I'm able to train outdoors. So, you know, again, without sounding like a broken record, you have to take the positives.
Totally. And I think, you know, like, let's hope that you guys are able to leave the country, and because, you know, to be honest, I'm not speaking out of turn, but it looks like, you know, we've been lucky in Hawaii with that whole thing. You know, and I want to say that they're trying to open it up a little bit more, you know, so it'd probably be more on Australia's end, like letting you guys leave more than being able to come into here right now, I think, you know. So, because like, you guys can't leave, right? Is that, you guys are not allowed to leave Australia, or?
We can't. There are exemptions. The
Yeah.
guy I was just on this training camp with here, he's an Olympic athlete and he's normally in Europe at this time, competing and training over there. I think you can get special exemptions, but, hey, man, there's a swell at Jaws. Like, I need my exemption. I'll probably tell you to beat it. So,
Beat it, yeah.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, interesting. So right now you're sitting at Byron Bay. You're about finishing up a massive training camp. So just give us a little info on what you've been doing, and it's what you're at the end of a 5-day big base.
Yeah, you can probably see the bags underneath my eyes. I went from like a pretty solid swell in Sydney and surfing every day, and actually getting really pounded. Those big days at Mavs, you might only fall off a couple times over the swell, and you get pounded, but the waves here was so uncrowded that I was getting so lit up, and my body and my ribs and my neck and everything's just so out of whack. And then came into this training camp here with an Olympic athlete who does short course stuff, who's just, like I'm not even in the same ballpark as this guy. So to try and just, keep within his shadow and follow him around for a week. And we're also doing some cool content stuff with 2XU for a campaign. And then there's like waves right now. Oh, actually tomorrow I've got to do a 68-kilometer run, which is 30 something miles.
Yeah, and it's nothing.
No, it's something, all right. I'm scared, but it's a really cool thing. It's called Run Walk Talk. It's a men's.
Oh, that's you're doing Swaney's thing.
Swaney's run, yeah. So it's a run from D-Bar on the Gold Coast to the Byron Bay Lighthouse. Anyone who knows this area knows how far that is. It's a long way, but it couldn't come at a better time, I think, in terms of trying to help men's mental health issues.
Totally.
Basically, so many people are depressed. They're cooped up in the house. They've lost their jobs. They're arguing with wives. And the best antidepressant medication for me is a pair of shoes. Put your shoes on and go run for 9 hours, and you got nothing to be depressed about. All you want's a glass of water and to sit on your ass for a little bit. So really looking forward to that run tomorrow. Scared as I am. But mate, I'm just day by day, week by week, and trying to stay fit and healthy, and surfing a lot, working on my equipment. Got to pay back that board that I broke, that brand new board of my buddies. Paul Gromit, first ever 9'4", nice, beautiful Dylan gun. I take it out Bondi of all places and snap it, get caught inside. So mate, life's good for me, and fit, healthy. If any races pop up in the near future, chomping at the bit for that, along with swell, travel pending.
Awesome, mate. Well, I think that's a pretty good way to end the podcast. Well, make sure you say hi to Swaney and all the boys for us, for sure.
Absolutely.
I love Swaney. He's such a good guy, and to come up with that's really cool. So I saw that they had postponed it for the Rona and all that stuff. So I'm glad that they're able to do it again. So
yeah.
But we usually end with I call it I haven't done a podcast for a while. It's 5 to finish, so 5 questions.
Ooh, rapid fire.
Yeah, rapid fire. It's not. But so number 1, what's the best big wave in the world?
Jaws.
Okay, 2. It's a lot of people have said that, but there's a lot of other answers as well. But what's
unknown ones too? There's unknown ones out there.
People aren't going to say that, which is totally okay. I get it. I don't want to be the guy that's blowing secret spots. So if you don't want to say it, don't say it. Number 2, what heaviest big wave you ever surfed? Scariest, heaviest, whatever around.
It's pretty scary seeing those things when you're not in position out of Jaws, just coming at you from all angles. Like, I don't think you'll see a bigger lump of water. So I'm going to have to say Jaws.
Yep. Okay, cool. The most underrated big wave in the world?
Most underrated big wave in the world? That's a pretty tough one. That's so hard. I'm definitely not going to say Nazaré because that's probably the most overrated. I don't know. I think the way people are starting to surf it, maybe Mavs, the left at Mavs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Mavs left.
I don't think I've had that one before. What's one big wave that you haven't surfed that you want to tick off the bucket list?
I've never surfed Porto Escondido. I've had Pasquale's really big, and it was just horrible backwashed closeouts, and still had a lot of fun. So yeah, I'd have to tick off Porto. I want to go to Nazare as well, but
Yeah.
it's not a great wave. Everyone just wants their photo on a 80-foot burger.
Yeah. And then finally, where is the next big wave discovery that we haven't, like, how Nazare sort of come onto the scene and all of a sudden it was like went zero to hero. Where's the next one of those things you think?
It's a hard one because I think we all kind of know these sort of places and you don't really want to say it, but in all honesty, you could, we study maps for a living essentially, and it's hard to get, but I think off the, down in the Tasman Sea somewhere off the bottom of New Zealand, places like that in this region, far up north, possibly around Scotland and Ireland, there's have to be some crazy reefs out there, but yeah, I reckon places like that, cold places, put it that way.
Yeah, they can have that, mate. They can have. Mavs is cold enough for me. Oh my god.
Yeah, mate. So it's no body fat, right? It's like
maybe it's it. Maybe as you get older, you can just get fatter and go surf for longer. Maybe that's the dream.
Yeah, for sure. Waikiki.
All right, Clint, mate. That was awesome, mate. Thanks so much. I'm glad you survived training camp, and like I said, good luck tomorrow. 68 Ks, everyone. That is 68, half of that's 34. You're looking at about 40-mile run. So good luck with that. So get out of the boys. And I really hope to see you out in the lineup at some stage this winter, mate. Hopefully everything parts and opens up and we get to share some waves.
It will happen, mate. It's just a matter of time. But yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. I never thought I'd get a start on something like this, considering, the big wave company that we're all in. So yeah, really appreciate it. And hopefully we can be out there going over the falls together soon.
No worries, brother. Sounds good.